war in South Vietnam was shaped not by fixed front lines or large formations facing one another across open ground, but by the collision of two very different military systems operating in the same environment. One relied on mobility, firepower, and advanced technology. The other depended on concealment, endurance, and the ability to survive with minimal resources. Archival footage from both sides of the conflict, including material filmed behind Viet Cong lines and later released by American authorities, offers a clearer understanding of how these opposing forces fought and adapted over time. By the mid-1960s, the United States had come to rely heavily on the helicopter as the foundation of its military strategy in South Vietnam. The air mobile concept, introduced on a large scale in 1965 and expanded through 1967, allowed American units to move rapidly across difficult terrain. Infantry could be inserted into remote areas within minutes, fire bases could be established on hilltops, and threatened outposts reinforced with speed unmatched in previous conflicts. This system emphasized flexibility, rapid concentration of force, and the ability to bring overwhelming firepower to bear once contact was made. The Viet Cong operated under a very different model. Their movement depended on footpaths worn into the jungle over decades of use. Travel was slow but quiet, often conducted at night and in small groups, rarely larger than a squad or platoon. Supplies were carried by hand, by bicycle, or along river networks using small boats. In many cases, fighters carried little more than what they could fit on their bodies. The result was a force capable of moving through dense terrain with minimal trace, blending into the environment and avoiding detection. These differences extended beyond movement and logistics into the way each side fought. American units typically engaged the enemy with coordinated firepower. When contact occurred, the immediate priority was to establish a perimeter and call for support. Artillery, helicopter gunships, and fixed-wing aircraft were brought in to suppress or destroy enemy positions. This approach was effective in open areas and near established fire bases, where supporting arms could be rapidly coordinated. The Viet Cong generally avoided direct engagements on those terms. Their tactics emphasized surprise and withdrawal. A short burst of fire, a mortar attack, or a carefully planned ambush would be followed by a rapid disengagement before American firepower could be fully applied. During the dry seasons of 1966 and 1967, American patrols encountered an increasing number of booby traps along jungle trails. Constructed from bamboo, wire, or salvaged metal, these devices were designed to slow movement and inflict casualties without requiring sustained contact. Where American forces relied on superior weapons and logistical depth, the Viet Cong relied on patience, concealment, and selective timing. The U.S. military operated one of the most complex supply systems ever constructed for a limited war. Food, ammunition, medical supplies, and fuel arrived by air, road, and sea. Even small patrol bases often had access to rapid medical evacuation. By contrast, footage taken behind Viet Cong lines shows small groups preparing food in underground pits to avoid aerial detection. Rations were often limited to simple portions of rice, and many fighters, particularly younger ones, appeared physically worn after long periods in the field. Terrain played a decisive role in shaping the conflict. The jungles and river deltas of South Vietnam favored forces familiar with the landscape. Viet Cong units exploited this advantage through extensive tunnel systems that provided shelter, storage, and escape routes. Some networks stretched for miles, allowing entire units to disappear underground. In some cases, villages were dismantled and relocated deeper into the forest to avoid detection. This fluidity made it difficult for American forces to identify fixed targets or deliver decisive blows. American units, despite their technological advantages, often struggled with the same terrain they were tasked to secure. Heavy equipment bogged down during the monsoon season, dense foliage, limited visibility even from the air, and small enemy units continued to move undetected beneath the jungle canopy. The environment consistently worked to reduce the effectiveness of conventional military superiority. The composition of the opposing forces reflected these realities. Viet Cong fighters were often young, many in their mid-teens to early 20s. Most were local, familiar with the surrounding villages, paths, and terrain. Many operated close to their home areas and could sometimes return to civilian life between operations. American forces, by contrast, were drawn from across the United States. Many were serving their first overseas tour. Their training was extensive and their equipment advanced, but the environment was unfamiliar. Long patrols, extreme heat, and the constant threat of unseen danger placed heavy demands on morale. Each side possessed distinct strengths. American forces benefited from organization, medical care, and leadership trained in modern combined arms warfare. Viet Cong units benefited from stealth, local knowledge, and a willingness to endure severe hardship. Behind their lines, fighters moved in small groups wearing simple clothing that allowed them to blend easily with civilians. Shelters were hidden underground or beneath foliage, and weapons were stored in sealed pits. American forces, by contrast, were identifiable by their uniforms, radios, and heavier equipment loads. Despite efforts at camouflage and night operations, complete concealment was impossible for a force of that size. Control of the rural population shifted frequently. Villages secured during daylight hours often showed signs of Viet Cong presence by the following morning. The Viet Cong relied on villagers for food, information, and concealment. American forces depended on local cooperation to identify enemy movement, though that cooperation varied depending on security conditions and immediate pressures. In many areas, allegiance followed whoever provided protection at the moment. Fear shaped the behavior of both sides. American troops feared the unseen ambush, the concealed explosive, and the difficulty of distinguishing combatant from civilian. Viet Cong fighters feared exposure, being spotted from the air, caught in the open, or targeted by artillery and gunships. Each side feared the strengths of the other. By 1968 and 1969, both forces were adapting. American commanders placed increasing emphasis on rapid mobility, reinforcement, and securing population centers. Viet Cong units relied more heavily on small unit actions, nighttime operations, and maintaining influence within rural areas. The conflict remained fluid, with neither side holding a permanent advantage across all regions. The war in Vietnam was not a conventional contest of armor and front lines. It was a struggle between a technologically advanced military and an adversary who operated in shadows. Weather, terrain, and local conditions shaped every engagement. The surviving footage captures only fragments of this larger conflict, but taken together, those fragments reveal a war defined by two armies fighting in fundamentally different ways on the same ground. Thank you for watching.